Welcome. I would like to welcome you to episode 482 of the Unpopular Podcast. This is the man, the myth, the legend, Jalen Hunter. Here at the Unpopular Podcast, I'm not really asked you to agree with me. I'm asking you to hear me out. When the Luka Doncic and Anthony Davis trade dropped or happened, I dropped an immediate reaction. So while, yes, I'm going to start this episode by talking about Luka Doncic and Anthony Davis, it's not going to be as in-depth because I talked about it before. I'm sorry for all my DSP listeners. It's on the YouTube channel. It's about 15, 20 minutes. I'll leave a little blurb somewhere if you haven't seen it to go see it. Here's the thing about initial reactions. The beauty in initial reactions is you get the genuine shock, frustration, surprise, anger when it happens. I think with this trade, the biggest feeling that you mutually saw throughout the sports world was confusion. Confusion because, and like I said in the initial reaction video I did, you don't see stuff like this happen. Situations like this don't happen. You don't see a 25-year-old franchise player get traded unless something egregious has happened. But as we know, or the information that we know now, nothing really egregious has happened for a 25-year-old player to get traded, a 25-year-old franchise player as good as Luka Doncic to get traded. So while no, I'm not going to go in depth because I did that to a certain extent on my reaction video. Again, I'll leave a link somewhere where you can check it out if you would like. After a few days, we've gotten a bunch of information that you could speculate led to the trade happening in general. But I will also say that the information that we got, I don't think, in fact, I'll say it like this. Information getting out, outside of allowing the public to get an inside scoop or whatever, information usually is to make whoever's dropping this information look better, or to smear somebody else's name. If information drops about you that you drop, more than likely you're doing it to make yourself look better. And I was curious. I'm like, how did we get here? How did we get to the point where the Dallas Mavericks felt comfortable enough to trade their best player to the Lakers for a player who, as great as Anthony Davis is not their best player right now? Maybe should be, but is not their best player right now. And we're also talking about a Luka Doncic that just led this team to the NBA Finals and has also been to an NBA Conference Finals years prior. And while, again, I'm not going to go into full detail, what I will say is this. There's not one bit of information that has come out publicly that has justified this move. In fact, most of the information that has come out makes one side, the Dallas Mavericks side, look much, much worse, almost daily. And it's not just the Dallas Mavericks as a whole. It's really one person. That is Nico Harrison. Almost everything that comes out, almost everything that he has done since this trade has made this whole situation look 10 times worse. From coming out and saying that defense wins championships, and they felt that they're closer to a championship now with Anthony Davis than they are or were with Luka Doncic is kind of crazy. I understand if you say, yes, defense wins championships, and you say that Anthony Davis is a better defender than Luka Doncic, nobody's arguing that. No one is arguing that. Anthony Davis is a premier defensive player in the league, one of, if not the best right now. So you would be foolish if you want to argue that Luka Doncic is a better defender than Anthony Davis. That's just not true. And no metric. And it's also true that there is a level of defense that needs to be played in order to win a championship. Usually, teams that win the championship are top 10 in defense. There's only been a few occasions where a team has won an NBA championship and their defensive ranking has been outside the top 10. I can think of 2 in the last 25 years. So in that sense, yes, you are correct. Nico Harrison is correct. Defense, a level of defense does win championships. But I think where he's wrong at, or I'm not going to say wrong, the reason why there's such a swelling of noise that isn't necessarily in his benefit after this trade is because, yes, defense wins championship, but that's not all it does. And you don't sacrifice the future of your franchise for the, how do I say this? For the hope of a immediate championship. It'd be different if this trade makes you 10 times better. It'd be different if this is Kevin Durant going to the already formed Golden State Warriors. That's different. If that was the case, I don't think you'd hear as much noise. This kind of feels more in the area of Shai Gilgeous getting traded from the Clippers to the Oklahoma City Thunder. But even in that, you understood because at the time, Paul George was looked at as a superstar. So you understand, wow, yes, that is a crazy haul. At the moment, it didn't feel as crazy because you're getting Paul George and pairing him with Kawhi Leonard, who at the time, both of them were bona fide superstars. But as we get more and more information, it's getting more and more clear that Nico Harrison essentially put the future of the Dallas Mavericks franchise at jeopardy for an immediate return. But even now, I don't think that return is going to be me. I don't think that they're a championship caliber team. I wouldn't pick them even with Anthony Davis and Kyrie Irving and Klay Thompson and PJ Washington and Derek Lively and Daniel Gafford. I wouldn't pick them over Oklahoma City Thunder. I wouldn't pick them over the Denver Nuggets. I wouldn't pick them over the Boston Celtics. I don't even know if I'd pick them over the Cleveland Cavaliers right now. Let me put a pin in that real quick. Because one thing that I have not heard as much is talking about the Anthony Davis side of this. Because when you hear this, and even it may even sound the same, I'll say, the way I'm saying it. So I want to put a pin in that, and I want to address the Anthony Davis side of this. Anthony Davis is no scrub. Anthony Davis is still a premier player. Anthony Davis has played himself into arguably a top 10 player this year. We all know that when he is playing to his best, you can argue he's a top 5 player. There are still arguments going around that when Anthony Davis is playing to the best of his ability, is he better than some of the top players? Or I'll at least say he's in that conversation. And the Dallas Mavericks getting Anthony Davis is huge. I don't think that they're a championship caliber team right now. Obviously, we haven't seen Anthony Davis play alongside the players that they have. But I don't think that they're going to fall off a map. I don't think that they're going to be trash. Let me not say that. I'm not going to disrespect Anthony Davis. He's one of the best players in basketball. And I think pairing him alongside a point guard like Kyrie Irving and a shooting guard like Klay Thompson is going to do wonders for that team and Anthony Davis. Now, yes, neither one of them is LeBron James, but I do think that there's a lot of reward playing with LeBron James when things click. But there's also, as we've heard a bunch of times from a bunch of people, there are challenges with playing with LeBron James just because of the attention that LeBron James gets and this team gets, which makes sense. When LeBron James, you play to a level where you're looked at like that. I get it. But I think that Dallas Mavericks are going to be in a good place with Anthony Davis, Max Christie, Kyrie. I don't think that they're going to follow. I think they're going to be in a good place. But we're also, and if we're being honest, we're talking about a player that, while in the last 2 years, I will give credit, has been healthier. He's been on the healthy side. But before then, you're talking about a player that has an extensive injury history. That is tough to gauge. Especially when you said you make this trade because you want some stability and you had concerns about Luka Doncic's conditioning and obviously his willingness to play defense. And you were unsure that he was you did not feel comfortable in getting him at 345 or 49, one of them two, Supermax. I will say it like this. Dallas is okay now. And when I say okay, I don't think that they're marginally better currently than they were currently with Luka Doncic. And what I mean by that is, I've been on this podcast saying I don't think that, even though they did go to an NBA Finals last year, I didn't think that was going to be repeatable. I didn't have faith that team that we saw last year, even adding Klay Thompson, was good enough to make it to an NBA championship. I thought teams were going to get better, and I thought that they ran into they had a great run, but I didn't feel like they could duplicate that run. Even with Anthony Davis now and not Luka Doncic, I still do not feel that they're in a championship now state. They may think that, but I just don't think they are. I don't think that this team is good enough to win a championship. I'm still looking. With Luka Doncic, they had two scorers and they had complementary pieces. Now they have one legitimate scorer, they have a defensive player, and legitimate pieces. I don't think that the margin is. I don't think you've moved the needle that much. The biggest issue that people are having, and the biggest talk around this whole thing, is the future. And I think Dallas, I'm not going to say ruin, because I'm not going to disrespect Anthony Davis like that, but drastically altered their future. And then again, when you hear things like Nico Harris, the current owner, laughing at the even thought of letting Luka Doncic go for Anthony Davis, or Nico Harrison not telling Jason Kidd this was happening until it happened, or Anthony Davis, Luka, LeBron, Rich Paul, none of them knowing until it happened, or until a couple hours or maybe a couple days before. And honestly, the only person that knew was Rob Pelinka. Nothing about the information that has come out after has made this situation look any better. Do I think that the Lakers are a championship caliber team right now? No. They were awful defensively with Anthony Davis, and he was their best defender. I think that their future is set. Now, I know that Brian Windhorst came out and said that there's no guarantee that Luka Doncic is going to sign the max extension or going to sign an extension with the team. I understand that. But at least he's in your building, so you can give it the best shot that you can. So, no, I don't think that this makes the Lakers a championship caliber team right now. I think that they're exciting to watch with LeBron James and Luka now. But this does ensure that you have, if they're able to get an extension, which I wholeheartedly believe that they will, now you have the player of the future. You have your player. You go from Magic Johnson and Kareem in them, and then now you have Shaq and Kobe, and then you go to LeBron, and now you have Luka. Your future is essentially set of somebody else's decisions. I think it feels crazy now, but it's going to, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit. We're going to talk about something else in a second, but we're going to look up. And I think let's expand this for 5 years. I think in 5 years, currently constructed, obviously the league changes yearly. Teams look different year after year. I get it. But if we're talking about currently constructed, I don't think either team has a championship in 5 years. The Lakers or the Dallas Mavericks. But what's going to be crazy about that is people are still going to feel confident about the Lakers because they have, at that point now, a 31-year-old player in Luka compared to, in 5 years, I think Anthony Davis would be 37, maybe? 36? Kyrie probably out the league. Klay Thompson probably out the league. So you don't have that star to fall back on. It's tough. It's definitely not a decision I would have made. And again, I think I feel worse about the decision after my initial reaction, because my initial reaction and a lot of people's initial reaction was shock. Now that shock, even though they're synonyms, has turned into confusion and anger, because it's like, wait, what? It ain't like you traded Luka for Giannis or Luka for Nikola Jokic. And again, that's no disrespect to Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis, he's Anthony Davis. He's tough. And I think the last game he had with the Lakers was a 40-20 game. So he's still him. But your future is essentially cooked. But I am excited to see Luka in a Lakers uniform. We all know, and LeBron James has been very vocal that Luka is his current best or favorite player to watch in the league. So I'm interested to see that. Then I'm interested. I think that they're going to be good in the immediate, and I'm talking about the Dallas Mavericks. I think pairing Kyrie Irving and Anthony Davis together could possibly be a perfect pairing. And then obviously with Klay Thompson as a complementary, that is a perfect pairing, Kyrie and AD. I don't know if it's a championship, at least at the stage that Kyrie is in his career and Anthony Davis is in his career. I don't know if that's a championship duo. Maybe when they were younger and more in their prime, but we'll see. Again, I'm not going to go back into even though I just talked about this for 20 minutes. Again, I'll leave my initial reaction somewhere on the screen. But yeah, Luka Doncic is now a Laker, and Anthony Davis is now a Maverick. So let's move forward. Before I talk about this, or before we talk about this a little bit in depth, I want to say something. In no way, shape, or form am I blaming Deshaun Watson for what is going on between the relationship that is Myles Garrett and the Cleveland Browns. I'll say this one more time. In no way, shape, or form am I blaming Deshaun Watson, the person, for the relationship seemingly issues that Myles Garrett and the Cleveland Browns have. With that being said, the saying is, with every action comes a reaction. With every decision comes a consequence. Let's not get it confused here. Myles Garrett is one of, if not the best defender in football. If not one of the best players in all of football. And I think that, I know that, it's not a think. I know that times are changed when we talk about sports in general. Back in the day, it was almost understanding, and it was almost uniform that it didn't really matter how good or bad your team is. There's a sense of quote-unquote loyalty that players would have to their team. On top of that, free agency was a lot more strict, and the salary cap was a lot more strict, and you couldn't really make a lot of moves as a player. Whatever team drafted you, whatever team you were on, it was extremely hard to leave that team. Or let me say this, it was harder to leave that team back then than it is today. So it gave a sense of loyalty to a team. Let me again say that Myles Garrett is one of the best players in all of football. One of the ways that the game is different today than it was back in the day is a lack of patience. Now, do not hear me say, I'm not saying that Myles Garrett hasn't been patient. I think Myles Garrett has been extremely patient with the Cleveland Browns. In fact, I think his patience is a larger reason why we are here. Again, every action has a reaction. Every decision has a consequence. Gone are the days where elite players are just okay with losing. Not saying that they were okay with losing back then, but again, it was almost foreign that you hear star players in the NFL back in the day request trades. It just didn't really happen. But that's not where we're at today. Gone are the days where you're okay with letting your superstar talent just rot away on a losing team. That's not where we're at. And that's clearly not where Myles Garrett is at. Myles Garrett, no, he's the reigning defensive player of the year on a 3-win team. And Myles Garrett officially requested a trade out of the Cleveland Browns. And I don't think there's one person outside of the Cleveland Browns organization that is shocked or upset with him for making this decision. You see, I didn't, and I'm not blaming Deshaun Watson for this, where we're at now with Myles Garrett and the Cleveland Browns. But what I will say is this. When you take a swing as big as the Cleveland Browns signing Deshaun Watson to then the most guaranteed money in NFL history, especially when you look at everything that's happened to Deshaun Watson off the field and his lengthy injury history. With a move like that, you have to hope that it hits. You have to hope that you knock that decision. That decision is a knock in the park, because if not, it has such dire ramifications. And as we're seeing, not only did that decision not pan out the way that they wanted to, it is widely viewed now when you look at how Deshaun Watson has played and just his availability after signing that contract. It is viewed as one of the worst, if not the worst contract in NFL history. It is viewed as one of, if not the worst NFL decisions in the history of the sport. And while I'm not blaming Deshaun Watson, because again, if you offer me as much money as they offered Deshaun Watson, if you offer that to anybody, I don't know many people that would say no to that. I said this, in negotiation in sports, you're worth what they're willing to pay. So if they're willing to pay you $275 million fully guaranteed, who are you? Why would I say no? But now, you look at the landscape of the team, and it would be much different. And we're going to talk about in a second a situation where going all in has a positive effect in the moment, but now you're seeing the ramifications later on. But it still had the desired effect in the beginning. When look at this Cleveland Browns situation, it hasn't gone right from day one. On top of the fact that now you're so hampered and so attached to Deshaun Watson that you really can't make any moves. You can't afford many players. You can just hope to get a player in the draft, but is Cam Ward, who I think is going to be exceptional, is Shador Stevens, who I think is going to be exceptional. Are they the pieces to turn around such a dysfunctional organization? One of the worst organizations in sports when we talk about some of the transactions that they've made. You see, all of this is like a smoothie. All of this is like a blender. You throw in the Deshaun Watson contract and how it hampers your team. You throw in the fact of Deshaun Watson gets hurt. Reed tears his ACL, so he's probably going to be out next year. You throw in the fact of, even with that, you still owe him what you owe him. Like, you're unable to make moves, on top of the fact of you're hoping that one of the rookie quarterbacks is going to be your savior, or you may have money to bring in someone like a Kirk Cousins or an Aaron Rodgers or a Russell Wilson maybe, but are those pieces going to take you over the top? You throw in the fact of you don't really have faith in your front office because you see the decisions that they've made. You start stirring up this concoction and you get what you get with Myles Garrett. Myles Garrett, you expect Myles Garrett to be one of the top players in football, to continue to sit and watch this around him and let his prime continue to wither away? No. Which, again, gets to where we get to. Now, it is a trade request. The Cleveland Browns do not have to answer his request. They don't have to give him what he wants. I think he still has 2 years left in his deal. But that also shows the time that we're in. Teams and team decisions are as visible now than they've ever been, because of the access that we get to the league, because of social media, because we're just, we're just able to see what happens. And I think the perfect example, if you want a comparison, is kind of what we're seeing in a certain extent with Jimmy Butler and the Miami Heat. Now, no, Myles Garrett hasn't gone to the level of Jimmy Butler as far as digging your feet into your request and saying, yo, no, I want to be out of here. But the way that Pat Riley and the Heat organization treated the exit with LeBron James, treated the ending with D Wade, treating this Jimmy Butler situation, players around the league are seeing that. And whether you think they're right or not, there are players that's going to dictate their free agency decisions off of how they treat this Jimmy Butler situation. There are players that are going to, if you do not, I'm not saying that you have to send him where he wants to go, but if you do not acquiesce to this Myles Garrett situation, from what we've known, Myles Garrett has been a model citizen for the Cleveland Browns and Cleveland. If you essentially hold him hostage to his contract, there are players that are going to see that and it's like, why would I go to an organization that essentially, Myles Garrett's probably the best player Cleveland's had since Jim Brown. So it's like, what are we doing? Why would I go there and you can't even treat your best player with respect like that? Nah. It's going to be interesting. But with every action comes a reaction. And this has been brewing since Myles Garrett essentially came into the league. Myles Garrett has played at a level. And it's almost funny. Almost every single time people talk about the Cleveland Browns, for the last few years now, it's always been said that they have a roster to compete at the highest level. They just never get there, whether it's due to the quarterback, whether it's due to some front office decisions. They never get to that point. It doesn't help that you play in arguably the toughest division in football, the AFC North. But roster-wise, Cleveland has for the last, I'll say, 3 or 4 years now, has had the roster to compete with the Baltimore Ravens, to compete with the Cincinnati Bengals, to compete with a Pittsburgh Steelers. Yet, as we sit here today, I think they won 3 games last year. If I'm Myles Garrett, if you're Myles Garrett, do you think he should sit around and hope that something just changes and the front office gets it together, even though there has shown absolutely no signs of that even being possible? I don't. I understand completely why he wants or requested a trade. He's been the consistent in Cleveland when nearly everything around him has been inconsistent. And there gets to a point where you just get tired of it. And it's like, wait, I'm good enough to be a missing piece on a championship caliber team. I'm good enough to be the piece on a championship caliber team. We've seen that. I know it's the way that, the rules and the game is played, it's leaned so heavily offensively. But we've seen players like a Von Miller. We've seen players on the defensive side of the ball be the reason why a team wins a Super Bowl. I know it was a while ago, but the Legion of Boom was a major reason why the Seattle Seahawks won a Super Bowl. A defensive play changed the trajectory of the Super Bowl with the Kansas City Chiefs. The first time the Kansas City Chiefs and the Eagles met 2 years ago. So if you're Myles Garrett, it's like, why am I wasting my years in an organization that has shown that they don't know what they're doing? I get it. There's no shock in me. I'm shocked that it lasted as long as it lasted. Again, and I'll say this for the last time, I'm not blaming Deshaun Watson for this. But when you give a player the contract that you gave Deshaun Watson, especially when we know all the external factors that you're getting with Deshaun Watson, you need and you pray that hits. I'm not even saying that you have to win a Super Bowl, but you have to look like a competent team. You have to win more than 3 games. And you didn't do that. So there's no shock why Myles Garrett has reached what he reached. It's funny, man. There's a couple teams that I think he'd be perfect for. And 2 of the teams are in his division. So I don't know if that's going to happen because it's hard for me to see anybody in the AFC North do business with each other. But I could see him. He would do wonders, especially when we don't know what's going to happen with Trey Hendrickson and Sam Hubbard. He would do wonders in Cincinnati. He'd be great for Baltimore. Kyle Van Noy had an incredible season, but he's getting up there in age. You pair him alongside a Kyle Hamilton, see what happens with Marlon Humphreys, Roquan Smith. That would force you talking about last year. Baltimore really struggled with a pass rush. Him at a BK, like, man, I can see the Commanders. I'm not just saying this because I'm a homer. I'm saying it because Bobby Wagner is a free agent. Like, most of the offense or defense is free agents at this point. And as we saw last year, one of the biggest sore spots for the Commanders was their defense. So you're definitely going to have some suitors. And Myles Garrett is still at that point of his career where he can be a seismic change for whatever team he lands on. Imagine Myles Garrett on the Detroit Lions. Like, come on. Like, we'll see. But I think all of this is me saying I'm not shocked at all that we got to this point. I think I'm shocked that it took as long as it took. But we'll see. Speaking of that, and we're not going to stay on this for long because we don't have to, but then you have the Cooper Kupp situation. When a team goes all in, again, it goes back to what I said with Myles Garrett. With every decision comes a consequence. That the consequence doesn't have to be immediate. The reaction doesn't have to be immediate, but it's coming. Whether good or bad, it's coming. And when you go all in, when you pay as much as you pay to win now, and you essentially win now, while you're not upset with the decision, you know that a decision like this is coming. When the Rams go all in, when you pay Odell Beckham Jr., when you pay Von Miller, when you paid Aaron Donald, when you paid Matthew Stafford, when you paid Cooper Kupp, when you paid Cam Akers, when you paid Van Jefferson, when you paid Jalen Ramsey, you are in win now mode. And in 2022, they did just that. They went to the Super Bowl and beat the Cincinnati Bengals on top of the world. I think that was the second Rams, not obviously the first time they were in California, I believe, but the second Rams Super Bowl win in team history. So you knew what they did. They set out to win it all at that point. They went all in, and they did. But the same exact thing that we're going to see, because when you have two players that are making over $300 million, we're going to see this with the Boston Celtics. Maybe not now. They may even win again, but we're going to see this with the Boston Celtics. At some point, the team's going to slow down. The team's not going to be in Super Bowl contention. And the decisions of your past is going to become present. So you're going to have to make more decisions. Cooper Kupp is a decision. And it doesn't help that Cooper Kupp hasn't had the healthiest of runs these last few years. But Cooper Kupp is still, I'm not going to say he's a top 5 receiver, which he used to be, but I do think he's still an elite receiver. But when you go in and you essentially get what you go all in and you win, the decisions or the ramifications of that going all in, you see. Think about this. All the names that I just named, right? Aaron Donald, Von Miller, Jalen Ramsey, Van Jefferson, Cam Akers, Cooper Kupp, Matthew Stafford. How many of them are currently on the Rams? Matthew Stafford, Cooper Kupp. Aaron Donald retired. Von Miller's on the Bills. Jalen Ramsey's on the Dolphins. Van Jefferson, if I'm not mistaken, is on the Steelers, I think. Cam Akers, I don't remember where Cam Akers is, but he is on a team. I'm tempted to say the Vikings, but I'm not 100%. I don't remember. What I'm saying is this. You bring in Puka Nacua, who has been good. Tyler Higbee is still on that team, but we don't know how long. What I'm saying is, it should come as no shock that now the Rams are actively trying to trade Cooper Kupp because he has gotten too expensive for them, especially when they don't have a lot of draft picks because they went all in. I don't think they have any until like 2030 or something. I don't think there shouldn't be a shock there again. Because again, when you play in the salary cap league and you go all in and you just blow the roof off the salary cap, you're going to have to put the pieces back together. And that usually means that people are going to have to go. And there's a different feeling with the whole Myles Garrett situation and Cooper Kupp. We knew Cooper Kupp was going to be a casualty. It was either going to be him or Matthew Stafford, and you know they're going to choose a quarterback over, or especially a quarterback that just went to the playoffs and beat the Rams. I mean, beat the Vikings. So you knew it was either going to be him, Matthew Stafford, Puka Nacua, or Cooper Kupp. That's not a hard decision. And again, there's a bunch of teams that Cooper Kupp could be extraordinary for, like the Bills, like the Cowboys, unfortunately, like the Commanders, like the Ravens, like Detroit, like the Pittsburgh Steelers. He's going to have a lot of suitors. But there is a difference. Now, obviously, one requested a trade, and one was told by the team that we're actively trading you. We're going to try to trade you, and we're going to work with you and the team. There's obviously difference there, but there's a reason why there's also a different feeling between the situation that Cooper Kupp is in and the situation that Myles Garrett is in. Both more than likely, obviously, I know the Cleveland Browns have come and said they're not entertaining any trade offers. Okay. But more than likely, both players are going to be on different teams next year, maybe. I know for sure one of them, Cooper Kupp, but we'll see. We'll see. I want to talk about the Grammys for a second. I want to talk about the Grammys because it shows exactly the divide. And it's always been that way. It's always felt like there's been a divide between how the consumer views music compared to how the Grammys view music. And let me first say congratulations to every single person that has won a Grammy and that did win a Grammy this year. Kendrick Lamar was the belle of the ball, I guess you can say, sweeping every category he was in. He went 5 for 5. He won Song of the Year, Record of the Year, Music Video of the Year, I think Rap Song of the Year. Like he was, Not Like Us was a monumental song, and rightfully so. Obviously, people feel how they feel about the whole Kendrick and Drake thing. Also, let me put a pin in that. I want to remind people something. I'm not here saying you can't feel how you feel. I'm not here disrespecting your feelings, right? I'm not here saying you shouldn't feel this way about one artist or another. You feel how you feel. And I respect you and your feelings to the upteenth power. But I do want to remind you of something. There are still people like actively caping for Kendrick Lamar. There are still people actively caping for Drake because of the whole beef. Because Kendrick Lamar wins 5 Grammys for Not Like Us, which obviously was a diss track to Drake. There are people to this day that say, I choose Drake's side. I can't listen to Kendrick. I don't listen to Kendrick Lamar anymore. Or he didn't deserve that song sucks. If that's how you feel, that's how you feel. You know what I mean? But it's Team Drizzy, Team OVO, Team Drake, and vice versa. It's Team Kendrick, Team K. Dot, Team TDE. I don't even play Drake. I can't play Drake. Let me remind you of something. Drake and Kendrick do not know that you exist. That's no offense to your existence. They don't know that I exist. So if I come out and say, oh, I can't listen to Drake anymore because I'm Team Kendrick, or I can't listen to Kendrick anymore because I'm Team Drake, neither one of them know me. Neither one of them know you. And whether you listen to their songs or not, that doesn't affect them in the slightest. Drake is going to be who Drake is. Kendrick is going to be who Kendrick is. I don't think you writing for Team Drake or writing for Team Kendrick does anything for them. All I'm saying is don't make your whole being about I'm writing for Team Drake or I'm writing for Team Kendrick. You can feel how you feel. I'm not here trying to disrespect you. I'm not here saying you're wrong for feeling how you feel. I'm just telling you what you look like. It looks kind of crazy that you're caping for somebody that does not know. You're caping for somebody hard that doesn't know you exist, that doesn't know I exist. When they say I love my fans to death, they're not talking specifically to you or specifically to me. They're talking about I don't know, man. It's just weird when I'm seeing everyone kill Kendrick or kill Drake because Kendrick won 5 awards, or kill Kendrick because it's about Drake, and all these Grammys is essentially because Drake. Kendrick can't do anything without Drake, even though Kendrick has 22 Grammys. Even though Drake right now I think he has 18 sold out shows in Australia. What I'm saying is this, man. If you like Drake music, continue to like Drake music. If you like Kendrick music, continue to like Kendrick music. If you listen to what you want to listen to, be a fan of music. I may think one person wanting a beef. That doesn't stop me from listening to any of the music. And it shouldn't stop you. You don't know Drake. You don't know Kendrick. That's all I'm saying. Back to what I was saying. Yeah, man, congratulations to everyone that won. Shouts out to Beyonce. Finally being the most Grammy nominated, and I think has the most Grammy wins, but never won Album of the Year until this year when she won with Cowboy Carter. Shouts out to her. She also, I think, was the first, if not one of the first, African-American women, or African-Americans in general, to win Best Country Album of the Year. I remember, and it wasn't that long ago, when the country community was up in arms about Beyonce wanting to make Cowboy Carter. look, you can feel how you feel about the album, but it's still groundbreaking that you go into a genre and have so much controversy around that and then end up not only winning Best Country Album of the Year because it was a great album for a lot of people, you also won Album of the Year, your first one. Again, Beyonce, I think, is the most Grammy-nominated artist of all time and has the most Grammy wins of all time. But she never won the big one, which obviously is Album of the Year, until now, winning for Cowboy Carter. So shouts out to her. Shouts out to Doechii. Look, I may feel that I loved Alligator Bites, the album / mixtape, whatever you want to call it. I enjoyed We Don't Trust You more. I enjoyed Might Delete Later more, because that's just me. That's just what my ears and my heart enjoyed. But I'm not here bashing Doechii. For people that going crazy saying she only sold 11K, cool. She's also the third woman in Grammy's history to win Rap Album of the Year. One being Lauryn Hill, the other one being Cardi B, and now Doechii. Again, I may enjoy an album more than the other, but I didn't vote on it, and I'm happy that she won. Well deserved. Well deserved for everybody. Some of the albums I ain't never heard of. Some of these people I've never heard of, but they won a Grammy. So shouts out to them, man. Shouts out to everyone that won a Grammy. And this is probably one of the first years. Obviously, it's always going to feel divided, but this is one of the first years where it felt like, and I started this segment with talking about the divide that usually has been with the listener and the consumer of the music and the Grammys. This is the first time when it kind of felt like there was emergence. There was a collective feeling of they got it right. Not like us, you can feel how you feel about the song. What you cannot argue with is the impact that it had. And obviously it won 5. I mean, it was the first diss track to win a Grammy. That's crazy. Cowboy Carter. I believe the first African-American woman to win a country album of the year. And Beyonce's first time ever winning album of the year, which is the big one. Doechii being the third woman in Grammy's history to win rap album of the year for Alligator Bites. Don't Heal, I think. Shouts out to everyone that won. Congratulations to you guys. And lastly, before I go, I wanted to send out a congratulations, and I wanted to talk about something. For the longest, it's almost, I'm not going to say taboo, but it's almost been, there's been such a hesitation to give women their own something. In a sense of, while there have been women that have their own shoe, there's been women that have their own attire for, let's say, Nike, for Adidas. It's been few and far between, I'll say that. I think there's been a level of fear because they think they can't sell this at the same rate as, let's say, a male superstar for whatever sport could do it. But it's always been tough, and it's been few and far between that a woman gets their own something. Now, you could say it is because the sports, especially the way we look at women in sports, has risen. and the time that we're in has intensified. Like when you look and you see Asia Wilson, you see Serena, you see Sabrina Nadescu, you see Caitlin Clark, you see Angel Reese. It's more popular now than ever to get behind women's sports because they've always been great, but the marketing is there more and more now. But for the longest, it hasn't been that way. It was announced, I think last year, that Asia Wilson, who unequivocally has been the best player in the WNBA, it was announced that she's going to get her own shoe. But that was like maybe a year to 2 years, maybe. But we were waiting on it, you know? And what especially Nike, what they would do is they would give you a colorway to one of their flagship shoes. Like she'd have a colorway on the GTs, or she'd have a colorway on the LeBrons. Diana Taurasi had a colorway on the LeBrons. But they wouldn't get their own shoe. Now, yes, I understand that Sabrina Nadescu had her shoe, but think about that. Out of all the women that are in the WNBA, why was Sabrina Nadescu, from my knowledge, one, if not the only woman at the time to have a shoe, when you have people like Breonna Stewart, who I don't think she had a shoe, but I know she had a colorway? Well, I'm saying all that to say that it was official this year, actually yesterday, it was officially announced, and we finally saw the images of Asia Wilson's new shoe. And it looks pretty cool. But even if it looked trash, this is just me saying congratulations, and it's been about time. Asia Wilson has been inarguably one of, if not the best players in all of basketball. This should have been happened. I don't know it took so long, but at least we're here. Again, I think it was almost frowned upon to give a young lady or give a woman their own something in sports, because I guess the bottom line is how much it would make. And for the longest, it probably didn't make a lot of money. But shouts out to women's sports, preferably basketball, being the all-time high. And it's not just the W, bro. You got Juju Watkins, I'm sorry. You have Paige Beckerts. You have Hannah Hidalgo. There are so many women in sports right now that you can wrap your arms around. And it's not even Coco Gauff. You know, Simone Biles, Katie Ledecky, Carissa Shields. Shouts out to Asia Wilson for finally getting her shoe revealed. Shouts out to her and Caitlin Clark for getting their number retired. Why they chose the same day to retire both their numbers, I don't know. But shouts out to Iowa and Caitlin Clark, and shouts out to South Carolina and Asia Wilson. Both, obviously, and that's another thing. You don't really see a lot of women getting their numbers retired, which I don't understand why, but, you know. But shouts out to Asia Wilson for finally getting her shoe unveiled, which you may think it's not that big of a deal, but in your entire sports life, how many women's shoes, not colorways, how many shoes that has a woman's logo and that's her own shoe, how many can you really think of? Not a colorway, but their own shoe. there you have it. That's been today's episode of the Unpopular Podcast. I truly, truly appreciate you guys. If you want an Unpopular Podcast shirt, hoodie, sweater, long sleeve joggers, the link is in the description below. I have multiple different colors, multiple different designs. Get your Unpopular Podcast merch today. Also, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. I'm trying to get as many subscribers as possible. Again, I appreciate all of you guys. If you like the content, tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend to subscribe. It means so much to me. Also, for all my DSP listeners, no platform is more important than the other. If you like hearing my luscious voice on your DSPs, whether that's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, wherever you get your audio stuff, and you're listening to me, I appreciate it. Tell a friend to subscribe, to follow. It means so much to me, and I appreciate you guys, all of you guys. Also, please follow the socials. Instagram, TikTok. I post pretty much daily. I'm still getting in the swing of things, so there's going to be more TikToks, going to be more reels coming up. So please follow, please subscribe. That's probably where we can go back and forth. That's the quickest way to get to me. You keep it respectful, and I don't really mind going back and forth. It just means you're passionate about whatever we're talking about, and you're listening to me, so both are appreciated. So yeah, Instagram, TikTok, please follow the socials. Facebook, please follow the socials. Until next time, much love.